many of us know what a mastering engineer does. I think it's one of the most critical parts of the recording process. It's to me, it's a stage in the process that I really look forward to. Not just because it's the final step and the record is done.
Because you're done.
You're done. But I just find such joy in letting somebody that really does that job well. Mm-hmm. I love the artistry of finishing. And so my question to you is, maybe you could tell us, for those that don't know, what does a mastering engineer do? And it is multifaceted.
Yeah.
And should you do your own mastering?
First of all, I say, don't skip it. Don't try to skip it, because even though we've mixed it, it sounds really good. It's like you can't put it out in the world just like these mixes, because it's like you've created these related but unrelated bits of stereo audio in most cases, So now we need to go to that next thing, and that's mastering. And to me, the most important thing is that there's just a continuity of where the things sit, like a through line on an album, or just even within a song itself. And so the first thing for me is that, like, if we're putting a bunch of songs on a record that's getting mastered, I want the vocal level to feel pretty consistent all the way through. So that means if there's an acoustic guitar song with nothing else and a rock song next to it, that song has certainly got to be quieter. We might have mixed it louder on our mix, but now we got to turn it down next to the rock song.
Right.
The other thing certainly that mastering does is just can bring up the overall average level, not the peak level, but the average level by shaving off peaks and with a limiter, and then pushing the gain, makeup gain back up. You can make the record appear louder. To ridiculous levels at times. We've all heard about the loudness wars and all that. I think some of that's a little less worrisome right now, and people are getting skilled. We were listening to something last night where we were like, that looks like we're looking at it in Pro Tools. We put the record on, and it looked like that's been severely mastered, and it sounded really good.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, someone did this very well.
Yeah.
So that process, make the record a little louder so it's presentable alongside the other music that's out there in the world. If your record is really quiet, like I remember making records in the late 80s, early 90s for CD, we didn't know how to master for CD. Nobody knew what to do. Mm-hmm. Mastering for vinyl, sure. I went to George Horn a couple of times. He'd cut the lacquer. He'd go, this EQ or that EQ? Do you like this better? Yeah, sure. He'd do all these moves. He'd cut the lacquer sides. We'd send that off. The record got pressed. It sounded great. CDs come out. We just got these mixes on DAT tapes, and we compile them and we put it out. And some songs are quiet and thin. Some are louder. Put it up against commercial records, like on major labels, and it sounds like it's not even there. It's like a wisp of a record. Okay, something needed to be done. That needed mastering.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. Like, you're not looking to be in competition. You're not trying to make it radio ready. We're not worried about it disappearing on streaming, because that does kind of take care of some of the average volume levels and stuff. But you don't want to have a poor representation of your final product out there in the world. So yes, get someone to master it. Look for someone that's done a ton of mastering. I don't really care how they're doing it, but my preference usually is lean towards people that are using some analog equipment in that process. And the more they've done and the better, and those records sound good to you, then the more likely you're going to like their work.
Yeah, and I think it's just nice to have somebody, if you mix a record and you're mixing for a week straight, or, it's 10 songs and you've mixed 10 days straight, me personally, my ears have gotten maybe a little tired. Maybe I did, things aren't, or one's a little brighter, one's a little duller. There might be a little bit too much low end. There might, there are little anomalies that happen over the things. Maybe you printed one a little hot, a little not so hot, whatever. And mastering really adds some cohesion to the record, like you're talking about, giving it that through line and just bringing it home, that the pacing of a record, this how things flow song to song.
Yeah, how much space between songs. There's a joke that there's like, you have 2-second pause. It's like, it doesn't ever work that way.
No,
Not at all. That's just a joke, but But, having the right pacing, like letting something be really intense and then 1, 2, next song comes
Take a breath,
in. Yeah, those kind of things. To me, there's a lot of details to that final step. And that can really change the way a record feels. It's really important. Whether one should master their music themselves, I'm really on the fence about this. In my opinion, that second set of ears and someone to really prep and set that up great is invaluable. So certainly I don't think mastering yourself, your own recording, your own mixes is the best idea, but some people can do a fairly good job of it with restraint and experience, sure. But for someone just to grab an off-the-shelf piece of software, hit a preset and run their mix through it, they're probably making their music worse.
Yeah. What do you think about some of these new services that are doing like AI mastering?
I took a song, I had a song that was in production. It was a very good rough mix. And I sent it to one of those services, just as a test. And I paid to get it back as a WAV file, whatever that cost, $10 or something. And I got it back, and I put it into a Pro Tools session, and I put the raw mix in the Pro Tools session. I put, like, whatever the stock 7-band equalizer and the stock, like, compressor limiter in Pro Tools are. Right. I put those on the unmastered version. And in about 10 minutes, I had a better sounding master than the one that the AI had sent back. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Same level, same volume, better sounding, better EQ, better presentation of the mix as it was, more clarity. That's all I got to say to that.